Today we're talking about a topic dear to my heart, about prayer. Um, but first I want to recap. When we recap, we get a chance to review where we've been over and over again, and hopefully it helps it get in our minds, because I know at least my mind, it needs all the help it can get. I got to revisit things, and so recapping can help. And so what we have is in your basic Mr. Potato Head, we've got basic prayer. We've got God is near. Pray as I can. Consider my prayer posture, internally and externally. Consider who God is. And think about who that means I am. So we have basic prayer, and then we're looking at some accessories to prayer. Things that we may not use every time, but then come into our prayer life as needed. And so last week we looked at one of the accessories for Mr. Potato Head that he can put on as he needs. And this week we're going to add a second accessory. And so these things, they can shift the appearance of our prayers at times to meet our life where we need help at that moment. And so the accessory from last week was we considered confession. It's not a guilt trip of all the bad that I've done, but it's an invitation to an amazing exchange where I bring my junk to God, and he gives me his grace and love. This confession doesn't make me less and less. It doesn't beat me down, but it expands me more and more into the fullness of what I'm meant to be. This week, as we move on to our next accessory that can be added to prayer, it's intercession. Intercessory prayer is made on behalf of others, or even on behalf of the rest of creation. It's to take something we see broken there and seek heaven there and bring the two together here in my prayer. Our word intercession comes out of the Latin intercedo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's how it's spelled. That's how it looks. But this Latin word literally means to come between. And this is what we do with intercession. We position ourselves between heaven and earth, and we seek to bring the two together. Typically, we can think of intercessory prayer in cases when someone we know needs something from God. So we join with them in interceding to move God to do something. The danger of that in intercessory prayer is that we can often turn prayer into these attempts to coax, lure, entice, charm, tempt, or even flatter or manipulate what can feel like an immovable and remote God, and try to get him to act. We can fall into wheeling and dealing with God. God, if you will heal my child, I'm interceding right now, and if you will heal my child, I will do this. Let's make a deal. Or we can even turn intercession into a hostage negotiation. God, if you don't heal my spouse, I'm done with you. I'm holding my faith hostage to this whole situation, and I will execute my faith if you do not do this for me. We fall into this danger of intercessory prayer when we turn it into a time of ticking off requests or even demands of God on behalf of others. Intercession can involve asking for things on behalf of others, but that's not the heart of intercession. So today I want to look at what is intercession in its purest form. Let's dig in. As I already mentioned, we often get intercession and pleading and petitioning confused. If I'm interceding, then that means I'm pleading and petitioning. But they're two distinct things. In 1 Timothy 2:1, Paul urges people to make requests, prayers, intercessions, and thanks on behalf of all people. The key here is that request, in other words, petition, is distinct from intercession. So what's intercession if it's distinct from request and petition? To get this idea, we can go back and look at the word. We consider that our English word evolved from Latin and it means to come between. But going back much further to the ancient Hebrew word for intercession, it's pagah. And it referred to a meeting or an encounter. Even dynamically, it can refer to a strike, to strike something, because what's happening when something is struck? Things are meeting. So this word in Hebrew looks to a meeting of things. In the Greek, our New Testament word is intercession. And it also references a meeting, or even having an audience with someone, or a conversation. The common theme here in the Hebrew and Greek is that there's actually a meeting taking place of some sort. So intercession is some kind of meeting. How does this work? Probably good to consult the best example we have, Jesus, to see how it works. Hebrews 7:25 tells us that Jesus has come to live forever to intercede for us. Likewise, Hebrews 8:35 tells us that Jesus is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. Both of these passages have Jesus facilitating a meeting for us. Jesus enters into humanity carrying the good news of God's love down to us, to the point of death. And then he's raised from the dead, ascending to the right hand of God, now carrying us with him experientially, intimately, to God. So that no matter how far we may feel at times from God, in Jesus, we're right next to him. We have that continual meeting with God. In Jesus, we and God are joined. We're meeting. So here's our prime example of what intercession is. It's coming in between two things, not to keep them separate, but being the one that steps in the middle to bring these two things together. God steps towards humanity in Jesus, and Jesus pulls humanity this way. He goes through the full experience. He becomes intimate with humanity, pulls it this way. And then he goes up to God and he brings these two together, and he creates a meeting between God and humanity. He intercedes. And Paul goes on to say, so what will separate us from the love of God? His point being nothing, because we are in eternal meeting with God. We cannot be separated. Jesus is right there keeping us together with God in this intercession, in this meeting. Rowan Williams, I believe, said it best about intercession when he shared that intercession is not just one more voice joining to bombard God with some petition. I need healing. Can I get 100 people to pray for me? Let's start sending this to God. Let's start bombarding him with our requests. Rowan Williams says that's not what intercession is. It's not bombarding God with these requests. But intercession is, I'm going to spend 10 minutes just thinking about you and thinking about God. My mind and my heart will become a place where I hold you as a person or your situation in the presence of God. And I want one to seep into the other. In other words, in intercession, you bring together two realities in your mind and heart and bring them to meet. You intercede. You cause a meeting. I will bring you, I'll bring your pain, I'll bring your suffering for 10 minutes into my heart. And I'll bring God and his glory and his love there. And I will be that place where they can meet. It's a mystical experience that takes place inside me as I choose to pick up, enter into, and carry someone's disease, someone's anxiety, someone's anger, someone's suffering, or simply someone as a person. Whatever it might be, I pick up the weight of it. And I choose to carry that in me, to then invite God in for a meeting. I'm the field upon which they come together. I lend myself to this. It's in this mystical experience that intercession ceases to become a verbal recitation. Oh, great, we got to intercede again. It's time to just start that petition words. Jesus, we need, we want, we call forth, we start petitioning. When you see it as this mystical experience in me, it's no more a verbal recitation. It becomes a powerful experience. It becomes a powerful experience because I choose to grab onto and I experience two live currents. I grab onto one current that's charged with divine glory and love. And then I look over and I grab onto the current that's charged with pain, suffering, loneliness, hatred, death. And I grab onto these so they can meet within me. And as I join in carrying what ails you, as I join in carrying what ails you, I am now plugging in to experience that. I am joining you in it. This is not a cold exercise. Like making 2 meet 2. You are now 4. This isn't a cold mathematical equation. This is an experience. And it's much more of a difficult idea than what it may actually sound like on the surface. I can think about Jesus. And I can think about the young girl who suffocated to death in the rubble of a collapsed building in Turkey. I can think about Jesus. And I can think about my enemies who killed my soldier Joel. I can think about Jesus. And I can think about watching a loved one waste away to a disease. But can I think about Jesus and the young dead girl who suffocated to death in a building in Turkey? Can I think about Jesus and my enemy Can I think about Jesus and my loved one who is wasting away from disease? Can I join two thoughts into one? Because this is intercession. It's a mystical experience where I become the facilitator of bringing to a singularity within me the things from our broken world and the glory and love of God. I become that facilitator for singularity to bring them together. I would dare to say that one can't conduct intercessory prayer without being deeply transformed from this experience. This is, I believe, because it's impossible to think of Jesus and in a single thought. Jesus and anyone. Jesus and anything. Without finding our love and our compassion and our capacity to feel for the thing I'm bringing to meet Jesus. I don't believe we can do that without finding that love inside us growing. It's nice and easy when I can compartmentalize my enemies over here and Jesus over here. I think of this and I think of this. The difficulty is when I think of this and this. But it becomes a beautiful experience. It joins us into each other's pain and suffering. It gets beyond facades. It gets beyond the front that we put up, the face we put on like the clothes we put on. Because we pick up what truly weighs a person. We pick up the literal person. And we say, I will pick you up and bring you in. And I will be that place where God can come into, and I will have this mystical meeting place on your behalf. I think the gravity of intercession is why Bonhoeffer, I would agree with him. He said that intercession for each other is the thing that Christianity will live or die on. Because it's intercession that we see we are first and foremost brothers and sisters growing in love for each other. It's an intercession I find out how human each of you are. It's an intercession we lend ourselves to each other to be that meeting place for each other. Christianity will live or die on this. Because it's also an intercession that the faces of those we would call enemies are transformed into the objects of Jesus' love. As we bring those enemies into ourselves to meet Jesus. So often we have this picture of an angry God. And we hear that Jesus is at the right hand of God interceding on our behalf. And because we have this picture of an angry God, we think he's interceding. In other words, he's holding God back. Don't strike them yet. Don't hurt them yet. Give them a little more time. And in our Western world, in our Western picture of this, what a distance that creates. That we have this God who Jesus has to be between us as a buffer. But in intercession, that's not how it's pictured. Jesus isn't there as a buffer. He is there because while we're still here, he has also already carried us to meet God. And he's interceding on our behalf by having within himself the eternal meeting of humanity and God. He has brought into intimate connection this meeting. We're going to pick up this idea of intercession when we continue our series on prayer. But I want to leave us with this quote. The prayer of intercession, to pray for everyone and everything that God cares about. The prayer of intercession is a sacred undertaking, not to be achieved by adding even more words, but the prayer of intercession is achieved by opening our hearts even more widely and by joining God at the place of our concern. We don't need to say much. We just have to show up. To intercede, you just have to show up. And you're a place where the divine can meet all that ails us. I'm not going to place anybody on the spot today to offer in front of everybody else what they might want this intercession for. But I'd like to lead a time of general intercession for our community. Intercession may or may not take place in every time of prayer that we have. But it can take place during special invitations. It can take place when someone says, I have something I need you to help me bring and meet with God on. I need you to carry this. And so we add it to our prayer. It's an accessory that can happen. It can happen when we see the devastation in Turkey and Syria, and it weighs down so hard on my heart as I just think of the horrible things going on over there. I can carry devastation in my heart and bring it into a meeting with God. I can be that intercession place, that meeting place. So this is an accessory that we can carry with us into prayer. It may or may not show up in every prayer. In this time of general intercession for our community today, first would each of you take a few seconds to think of something personal to you that you could really use a meeting with Jesus in? Is it pain? Is it suffering? Is it struggles with someone? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it what stands out to you? We all have probably 99% of these issues. At some point we experience these. But is there one thing that stands out to you today that you're like, man, I just need a special meeting with Jesus on this? So you just take a moment and think on what's one thing that might stand out to you today. Having taken that moment of something that stands out to you today, would you now feel the weight of understanding that each person in this room here is a human being? And so this means they have something that they need intercession for. They have something they need to meet Jesus with. You don't need to know explicitly what it is to know that it's there in each of us. So you've thought of your one thing. The others around you have thought of at least one thing. Will you just for a moment feel the weight of that? Feel the weight of a room full of people here who have a pain, a suffering, something in their life. as you've shifted from that one thing to the weight of this entire thing that we have gathered here. Will you just mentally join me as I pray a prayer of intercession for us today? Jesus, you're the epitome of divine love. And we are here holding within ourselves the weight of that thing that each person here feels they need intercession for. That thing that might feel too heavy for one person. We're here as a community, holding it up and lifting it to you for a meeting with your love, a meeting with your peace. Would you take this moment of intercession to meet with these struggles, with these pains that we are holding for each other? As we hold thoughts of you and we hold thoughts of this pain and suffering, as we hold these together in our mind, would the divine love of God just seep into all the suffering and the pain? Would you just take 60 seconds right now? This is intercession. Will you just sit here and just be that place where you think of the weight of the pain and suffering in this room and the divine love of Jesus? Connect them. Would you just sit here for 60 seconds in a moment of intercession and bring these two together to meet? It's been said that one of the best things you can do for someone in suffering is to simply sit with them in it. So here we are, Jesus, sitting and suffering together, interceding for a meeting with each person's suffering and you. Amen. Brene Brown, I believe she's the one. I'm trying to think of who it was. I believe it was Brene Brown, who she mentioned, join the person in their suffering. You don't speak at them, you join them. When someone's suffering, when someone has a weight they're carrying, you join them under. You don't speak at them. Sympathy lectures someone. Sympathy says, let me educate you. At least this isn't wrong. Well, this does me no good with what's wrong now. Empathy joins you to them. And you get under the weight and you sit there with them, often knowing that no words will help. That's intercession. Intercession is saying, I will simply take the weight of this. I will feel it. But I will also, even at times, if you're too weak to think, how do I bring this to God? I will also bring God for a meeting. That's intercession.